Tony, tell us more about the four-wheel blast furnaces known as Nitro Funny Cars.
Nitro Funny Car includes Ford, Chevy, Dodge, and Toyota that design and engineer the aerodynamic carbon fiber body that provide well over 5,000 pounds of downforce towards the rear of the body to allow for traction under acceleration. The front, just forward of the injector opening on the body, will generate over 2,500 pounds of downforce to not allow any lift and slip through the air to allow speeds nearing 340 miles per hour in 8,000 feet.
And now let's take a look at our starting lineup for round one of Top Fuel Eliminator.
In the grand scheme of things, Jason Bunker's going to be okay with that. Car got down the track. If you were paying attention to the starting line, Johnny West just looked at Bunker, kind of spun his fingers around, basically saying it was spinning all the way down the track. Kind of to be expected right now. He's spinning down the track. Here's another look. Take a look. First Wilkerson, he's going to take the tire off right out here. And you can see Cruz, cylinder out, 2, 3, flame patterns all over the place. And that's the telltale sign that that car was spinning the tire pretty hard down track. But Cruz gets down, actually moves up to the number 9 spot with a 411.3, 293 miles per hour. Dan Wilkerson's going to stand on his 457 in the number 13 spot. We're getting ready to fire up 2 more Nitro Funny Cars. Has proven that it will go down this racetrack in any condition. That will make Buddy dangerous come tomorrow. He'll stay number 8 right now. Blake Alexander stays number 12, and we'll go to Tombstone.
That's right, you'll see bears coming real soon. We got one of the unlimited hydroplane racers, Mr. Corey Peabody.
J.R. Todd might be one of those drivers that you think about. Alexis took the tire off, goes 4:32.8, still the best one of the weekend. She'll stay 11. And we go down to my Nitro School co-host, Todd Smith.
Yeah, we're down here with Todd Smith. So, Casey Gelman says he taught you a bunch of stuff at Nitro School to make that possible. Is that true?
Not sure got to fit. 7:44.89 as he coasts across. Pauline will stay 3.
Driver of the Cornwell Chevy Camaro for John Force Racing, the points leader, Austin Prock.
Raceways, before we fire up these funny cars, I want to tell you 5:15, that is 1 hour and 18 minutes from now, top fuel final qualifying. So we still have funny car, and then pro stock motorcycle, and a reminder for our Lucas Oil competitors, stock and super comp. We will be calling you to lanes here pretty shortly. Once we get into pro stock, I'd imagine we'll start bringing you up here as well. So Austin Prock takes Coil quality tools, flavor package JFR into it.
Wow, I told you 395,
Make that
but
6th consecutive final in the Mission Foods Too Fast, Too Tasty Challenge. He has won the last 3. He has now been to the finals in 6 consecutive. Let's take another look at the instant replay brought to you by the 70th anniversary of the U.S. Nationals. It's Tasca off the line first by 0.02 of a second. They were pretty even to 60 feet. I do not believe Bob had a bite of anything down there. But that car spun the tires about 500 feet. Austin's car wagged the tail a little later, and he's able to drive it on through to the 398, 318 miles per hour. Puts Chevrolet and Cornwell Tools into the final, and a manufacturer representative from each of the big
championships. On the left-hand side, the reigning champ, and he's out for revenge, driving for Tony Stewart and Dodge, your reigning champion, Matt Hulk Hagan. You're the fly on, wings of fire. side for Napa and Toyota, he is a 3-time world champion. It's Ron Cash.
It's already been a great day if you're Tony Stewart. I'm sure he's well aware, but his Xfinity Series cars with Riley Herbst and Cole Custer just finished 1st and 2nd in Indianapolis in one of the wildest finishes you've seen in an Xfinity race in quite some time. With 0.55 reaction time, but he had to drive the wheels off that thing down there at the track, and Ron Capps was able to drive around him on the top end. Joe.
Down here with crew chief Dean
Jimmy Brock, the crew chief, making one last adjustment. The only question here, Tony, is how low can this car go?
Well, they're more than likely going to test being the first car out. They're not so much concerning themselves right now with their second round opponent.
Right down the gut, 383.8 at 331.85 miles an hour. Austin Prock has once again brought the Thunder the identical elapsed time that he qualified #1 with.
Look, there's no pressure coming into this single. They earned it. They were the #1 qualifier, and this is a full send run right here. The conditions are similar in terms of the track temperature and the amount of grip. However, we do have some cloud cover. We have better air, so there were adjustments that they had to make, and they seem to adjust well.
We caught up with Austin Prock for this week's Revzilla Behind the Visor, and it's a great chat with a great young man in the pits. One of the most compelling stories of the 2024 NHRA season involves Austin Prock stepping into the Nitro Funny Car category and doing so and driving like he's had a decade of experience. And it's only fitting we catch up with Austin in the pits here at Pacific Raceways. 2019, one of the most joyful and chaotic days of your life came. You won Top Fuel the same day. John Force won his 150th Funny Car race.
Yeah, that was really special. You know, to watch John do that in front of me, it definitely put a lot of pressure on me. I remember it like yesterday, and Torrance was up there. We were playing games with each other, and the veteran got
that 95 for Jeff Deal is a lifetime achievement.
Well, for Jeff Deal, you have to do something special. Paul Lee had the much better car, but he gave it away on the starting line, and he's going to be even more disappointed knowing that he made that quick run.
Jordan, tell me more about the winner, Paul Lee.
Well, let's talk about that 391 by Paul Lee. I caught up with Paul Lee on Friday before this weekend, and he told me that Johnny Lindbergh moved the fire bottles and shifted the balance in the race car to get more grip in the rear tires. Whatever they did seems to be working. They qualified #3, and they're on round 2.
These conditions that have changed so much by 20 degrees, even more on the racetrack, they really swing in the favor of the cars that make the more power. Now they can use it.
And JR is using it in the steering wheel. He goes down a racetrack in a 393 and 297. He was off it early. That car was moving around for Buddy Hull, a 424 at only 236.
Yeah, of course, these shorter wheelbase funny cars, they are a handful. They're not as stable as a longer wheelbase top fuel car. You can see J.R. Todd doing a lot of wheeling in that car and probably had a good enough idea that the car accelerated so well early in the run that he took the safe approach and shut the car down.
And you can see the header flames in this cloudy day. So we look now at Austin Prock's car already back in the pits. The Cornwell Tools body coming off as we look in from the Cornwell Tools pit camera. And the team has jumped into service. It will be Gary Densham, the man they've called in cars he raced, the teacher's pet. And taking on this man, a three-time world champion, the Napa Auto Care colors in the GR Supra for Ron Capps. Capps is a guy who will tell you he grew up hanging on the fence at places like Fremont, places like Carlsbad, when Gary Densham was match racing back in the 70s.
Yeah, and that's exactly why Ron Capps wants to look forward to his next round opponent, but he's smart enough to know that Gary Densham is pretty savvy. He tunes his own car along with Greg Amaral, the tuner that was just making last-minute adjustment, setting the idle on the car, so I'm sure Ron Capps is going to be smart on this approach.
Capps has problems. They're both pedaling. Capps' car wounded and blows the body off. A massive explosion for Capps, and he fights for control. Gary Densham will advance, but a bad explosion at the top end. You can see the mixed up cylinders, Tony. That one was bound to do exactly what it did. Went off like a nuke.
Yeah, and for a driver, drivers rely on instincts, and Ron Capps is as experienced as anyone. However, he's in the heat of battle. He knew that the car was laboring, cylinders were out. However, this is a competitor that you're looking at, and again, the competitor's instincts are to do whatever it takes to win. You want to be smart about it, but he heard and he could likely see that Gary Densham was not out in front of him when Ron Capps encountered problems, but you can see he's out of the car. This is a driver that's in very good shape. This is a professional race car driver. He does this for a living. He owns his own car. He knows and understands what is at stake. But fortunately, you can see a lot of damage on the car. It wasn't a hard impact, but it does seem that Ron Capps is well and out of the machine.
This is an instantaneous cost of at least $100,000 on the low end, Tony. We might be looking at $200,000 vaporized in an instant as we check out this week's That's a Repair for Pep Boys. Walk us through what is the most cataclysmic explosion Ron's had in years.
Well, the body itself is a $50,000 item, and here he is losing traction, and you can see all the raw fuel pouring out, and that causes the explosion. It is doing some damage internally. When the cylinders start to misfire, the supercharger boost pressure goes up because now you have one cylinder that is not burning the fuel. The boost pressure goes up. Now all the other cylinders are lean, but here's where the damage starts. An explosion is one thing, but it seems that the body explosion shifts the car. It literally lifts it up in the air and points it into the direction. This was just before the parachutes came out. But again, a saving grace is there is a safety shutoff system and enough damage with the body that it appears that it deployed the parachutes. It's spinning the tires. He's on the throttle. There's the explosion. And fortunately, the tethers were able to contain the body. It did not launch that body up into anywhere that was going to create any danger for anyone else. But here's Ron Capps. He's still driving the wheels off of this car, trying to keep it off of the wall, but the parachutes did scrub off enough of the speed for him to be able to contain the impact, but still a lot of damage. It's not just the body. It's not just the engine and the components. That chassis took a hard hit. It may not be salvageable.
Ron climbs out of the car. In this sport, we know who the drivers are when everything goes wrong, and that man is a driver.
Down here with Ron Capps. Ron, we all witnessed a very scary moment when that explosion happened. The big question is, are you okay?
Yeah, I'm fine. Yeah, thank God we got all the new safety stuff in there, because I probably 4 or 5, 6 years ago would have probably, who knows, I mean, especially the head padding. John Forrest, I know you're at home watching what John and his team has done in the past. Surely made that less on my body. But yeah, we were staging the car and there was some drops, and I was like, oh boy. But I felt like it wasn't bad enough that we couldn't run. And I know Guido was trying to throw down pretty good. Just shook him loose. I pedaled it, and I couldn't get it going. I hear Gary over there. Then I knew he was a little bit in trouble, but then he started going again out my window, and I was just trying to get it going again, nothing crazy. And as I rolled in that last pedal, I've been there before. The explosion, the concussion, and the body's gone. And when I'm seeing these trees around the track, it's not a good thing in a funny car. So then I was just hanging on. I don't think I've ever had an accident like that, hitting walls, and just it's something I don't think I've ever done in my career that bad. So I was just hanging on, trying not to hit hard. And after I hit the right wall, it just went left, and I knew I was going to go head on into the other wall. So just brace for it. We've got Guido, and the guys are great about the padding around my legs that they got like from IndyCar and stuff, and that surely probably kept my legs from getting hurt bad. So I just want to get out and let my wife know at home. I know she's on NHRA.com and watching, and my family, love them. But all good. I just hate it, god dang it, because Napa, you know, we've finally turned the corner. We're running great, and just felt so good about today and how we're doing, and set us back a little bit. But we got great race cars. Precision guys will get going on another car. We got to get to Sonoma and get through there, but definitely hurt the budget. The owner of me is a little bum more than the driver.
We're all glad you're okay, Ron. That's all that matters.
Appreciate it.
You can certainly hear in Ron's voice the effect of that in so many levels. Now it's time for Chad Green of the Bonco Mustang. The Boxo Tools car with Summit Racing Equipment, and Bob Tasca III. Across the racetrack, the Ford Performance car. We talked about Tasca qualifying an uncharacteristic 12, trying to fight out of round one. And he will fight out of round one as Green's car shuts off early. Bob Tasca goes 386.8, 338.51 miles an hour for Bob Tasca III. One of the fastest runs in the history of NHRA funny car drag racing.
That's a big booming speed, and that's what we expect from this Ford machine. It's a good amount of power. It's a setup that the tuners place on the car in terms of the fuel system, the clutch application, and of course the aerodynamics of Ford Performance. The engineers, what they have done to this machine, allow those big booming top speeds.
Bob Tasca, in a single fell swoop, has just raised the speed record at this drag strip by 4 miles an hour and is knocking on the door once again of history. Here's Matt Hagan, the Dodge Power Brokers Direct Connect, SRT Hellcat Red Eye Charger, and across the drag strip, the Versatran Toyota, were the Bluebird Turf colors as well of Dave Richards. Hey, we saw what Densha pulled off earlier.
Well, I think that right there is a good indication that the unpredictability of the sport because of the high horsepower of these cars, anything can happen. So that really puts Dave Richards in a position, but you need not worry, have no concern about lane choice. We saw most of the funny cars in the right lane winning. That was just a coincidence. We saw Tasca opt for the left lane and run that 330 mile an hour, 338 mile an hour speed. That means there's plenty of grip in both lanes.
And Dave Richards is sideways across the racetrack and hard into the right-hand retaining wall. Richards, a very bizarre launch, 389.1 at 327 miles an hour for Matt Hagan, clean. You can see Dave's brother very dispirited on the starting line as Richards will drive the car down the racetrack. A bizarre situation here for Richards as the car spun, the tires came right across and really hammered the wall.
Yeah, and I'm sure we'll get another look at this. Of course, there was a head-on or close to a 75% impact. But I'm looking under the car to see if there's any fluid. There was a reason that this car lost traction so early in the run, but it continues to rotate the tires. So you can see the initial move was early, and of course because of the torque of the engine and just the excessive wheel speed so early in the run. So not only does the driver not expect it, but once the car starts to rotate, the driver can only do so much at that point. So they're going to take a look at the car, see if there was any fluid, and see what the damage was.
So Tony, let's watch once more from the rear view.
Well, it happens early, right at wide open throttle. You can see it unload the chassis. I don't see any liquid or fluid that could have gotten under the tire. It's not out of the question that there was an issue with the steering, and I'm not trying to take any pressure off of the driver because everything falls on the pressure of the driver, but you can see what it did to the concrete barrier, and that's how hard that impact was. Fortunately, it wasn't high speed.
And the fluctuation of the picture was that barrier hitting our fiber optic cable. Both off and on the throttle. Alexander's going to try to slummock his way to the top end, and he will do it. 625 at 134 miles an hour. 3 words for you. I give up.
Well, a big starting line advantage, a sizable starting line advantage for Alexis. We'll get another look at this, but the reason that Blake got to the finish line is the second that you saw the parachutes come out of Alexis's car, her car was out of power, and there's Blake doing a good job. He's really paying more attention to the audio. He doesn't hear his opponent. Of course, he doesn't see her, but he's off and on the throttle. His car shakes. He makes the adjustment, and he's waiting for her to drive around him, but when he doesn't hear it, he doesn't see it, he slowly starts to get back, and every time those injector blades open, he is back on the throttle.
Let's listen to Alexis DeJoria's ride. It came to a very, very quick end, and you can see her hands up saying, what just happened? And that burp you heard in the background was Blake just barely breathing on the throttle.
Yeah, and that's the frustration, because she couldn't see. She could hear that Blake was having problems, but her car, when those shoes came out, that was the auto shutoff system that was the reason the car lost power.
And the final pair of one of the most bizarre rounds of Nitro Funny Car racing we've had not only this year, but in multiple years, is Cruz Pedregon of the Snap-on Makers and Fixers Dodge. Nick Pinchuk, who is the president and CEO of Snap-on, was at the racetrack yesterday delivering his own patriotic, inspiring messages. And Dan Wilkerson, the Summit Racing Equipment, Skag Power Equipment Mustang. Jordan, you've been following the Dan Wilkerson story.
Yeah, we've been battling 2 different rain delays down here, and after the first rain delay, I asked Tim Wilkerson, for Dan Wilkerson, if it had him rethinking his tune-up. He said, well, I've already made 2 trips back to the trailer. We just about to another rain delay. I asked him, any more trips to the trailer? He said, yeah, I just made 1 more. Main thing he's worried about, more water drains in the air. It's changed drastically down here. We'll see if his tune-up works in this condition.
They can make the right adjustment there. The good news is the temperature outside is the same, as well as the track temperature.
The 2 cars rocket down the racetrack, a great side-by-side run, and it will be Cruz Pedregon. How about a 389.5 from Pedregon at 315 miles an hour? That car has not seen that level of performance in a very long time, and Tim and Dan Wilkerson are wondering what they just got hit by.
Oh, you can see the reaction from Tim Wilkerson. It's like, we did everything we could. We just got flat out run. You can see this is the power of a nitro engine. This is the end result of when you get everything right, when the tune-up is right, when you read the track conditions, when the driver gets off the starting line first, and everything plays out the way you asked the car to do on the parts, and the end result is that Snap-on machine is back, and you can see Dan Wilkerson driving the wheels off this car.
You can see all those steering inputs, a Summit onboard camera for Wilkerson. He put up a valiant effort. He drove the car very well, but Cruz Pedregon, a 389.5, we haven't seen the car run like that since the finals in Pomona a couple of seasons ago, and even had raw fuel coming out of it.
But that was the finish line shot. You can see the car's already out of power. The raw fuel is coming out of the cylinders just before that 1,000 foot mark. Just goes to show you how quick the car accelerated early in this run.
So Cruz Pedregon advances on a round 2 of the 389.5. That is the good news. The bad news is, Cruz, you have Austin Prock who ran 383.8. Gary Densham and Blake Alexander, the number 10 and 15 qualifiers. Then it's Lee and Hagen, Todd and Tasca, the remaining 8 funny cars. And this was a round of attrition as much eliminator when Ron Capps lined up next to Gary Densham. What seemed like it might have been a slam dunk turned into one of the worst rides Capps has taken in his career. A massive backfiring explosion destroyed the engine, and with it his Toyota GR Supra body. He was fine and dandy. He was okay. He climbed out of this thing. His wallet's very dented, but man, this was brutal.
Yeah, what set off these chain of events? It seemed that the tires shook early. It seems to me that the car was slow. It shook the tires. He was off the throttle, back on the throttle. Meanwhile, the fuel system is ramping fuel volume into that engine. He was wide open throttle. There were cylinders that were not firing. The boost pressure went up. That may have caused the explosion. And after the explosion, it seemed like it just lifted the car, shifted the car, positioned it into the wall, and of course the rate of speed was enough that there was initial impact on one side of the track, and fortunately most of the speed was scrubbed off by the parachutes and didn't impact the car the second time around in that left lane.
You can see the shielded driver area. You can see the remains of this car. The unfortunate part of this, Tony, is a multiple hundreds of thousands of dollars that one explosion will cost this team, Prock's team. You can see them checking the top of the intake manifold for flatness and straightness. When they bolt their supercharger on, they want and need a perfect seal. The Cornwall Quality Tools look here. We're talking about Austin Prock, our Ram Road to the Finals, brought to us by Ram Trucks. Can show us exactly how Austin got here, and boy, it has not been by mistake.
Well, it started by being the quickest car in every qualifying session, but he was awarded this first round solo. Of course, they took full advantage of it, laid up. Not really. They matched their qualifying effort under this overcast sky in the first round.
They made the clock sweat. That thing was so fast. That was the only thing they punished there. Austin Prock and Cruz Pedregon. Now, Cruz Pedregon's car began to show real promise, some real signs of life after a set of doldrums to start the season, and he made a good run, but just not enough to hang with him. 388.
One blink from this team, and that snap-on car could have driven around him, but again, a good rebound for that team. They found the performance getting into the second round. They just happened to run across the hottest driver on the circuit over the last several races.
J.R. Todd went full ninja on the starting line against Austin Prock with a reaction time that is seldom seen or even spoken about in funny car with an 0.45 light, but it was once again that hairy-chested 388 Ford to take the victory.
Yeah, and you can see that they rebounded greatly, or rather nicely, from their previous round. They came into that matchup with the performance disadvantage, which they don't really see those situations often.
He's done measuring nitro, and now Austin's with Bruno.
Well, Austin Prock took a break from turning on wind lights and checking fuel to sit down with us and talk a little bit about his racing career. Austin, you know, you're about to turn 29 years old, and yet you've got 19.
He is wearing it, of course, in tribute to the boss. And as we have talked about, that John Force car, the peak performance car, will be back on the racetrack in Brainerd, Minnesota. Rocket was driving it until after the Sonoma race, but we go back to 2019. This was a bizarre final because John Force had just won funny car, Tony. You and I were standing where we're standing right now. It was complete chaos at the racetrack. Force had flopped over a fence somewhere. He staged up with Steve. They both had these horrific reaction times, but he got the win.
Yeah, this is a much more experienced driver. You know, he was relatively new. There was a lot of pressure on him going into that final round, and he might have just got tensed up, especially racing a multi-time champion like Steve Torrence. That's not the case today. He seems like he's been able to handle the pressure on the big stage. He's been handed the most consistent, the quickest car in the field, and he's done a great job with it.
So it was Jordan Vandergrift's unenviable task of trying to get the guy who his own son said doesn't speak to speak at the starting line. He caught up with Jimmy Prock.
You can go a few rounds at the World Series of Poker.
Yes.
Because this is much a mental game. It's not so much physical. But Paul Lee, he's proven to his competition that he can handle pressure, never at this level, never in the final round. But he has to know that he has a good machine, and this is a great opportunity for him.
And Chase Van Zandt just showed that the seemingly impossible can happen to somebody who has a 0 next to their name in the win column. So the angry, cackling Nitro funny cars have completed their burnout. 7 career victories for Austin Prock. 3 in the funny car category. Paul Lee has not carded one of these national events yet, and that McLeod Clutches, Powerbuilt Tools, FTI Performance, Silver Sport Transmissions machine. As a driver, you've lived this. You won 43 national events. This moment when the body's up, what's going through your mind?
Complete focus. I think for Paul Lee, he has to be thinking just one more. He's here. I think he's trying to seize the moment. It's interesting that there was about a 5 to 7 differential in the amount of time that that Paul Lee did his burnout versus when Austin Prock, and they timed these cars from start to finish to when they want the driver to stage. In 5 to 7 seconds, you're talking maybe about a gallon of fuel. A gallon of fuel is about 8 points, so I'm sure it was by design, but I just think it's interesting that both of them have a slightly different run time.
The final of Nitro Funny Car at the Northwest Nationals. Tire smoke for Paul Lee and a win light for Austin Prock. Man, this kid is just unbelievable. A 69 reaction time. His brother Thomas pumps his fist. 387.5 at 334.57 miles an hour. It is a bulldozer, man. That is a bulldozer.
It really is, and you can't hardly fault Paul Lee and their team for getting too aggressive, but watch how they stage, and this is a sign of experience. This is just one of the tactics. This is a mental technique that some drivers can use, and it's called deep staging. Now take a look right there for Paul Lee. He's going to roll that car in a little bit more than Austin Prock, and he's shortening the track. But what he also did was he knocked the top light out in maybe an attempt to create a little bit of a distraction for Austin Prock. It didn't work. He has seen that. There have been many that have tried, but he's just got so much confidence right now. And take a look at Paul Lee. It's a good starting line leave, pretty aggressive, but there it is right there at that 330-foot orange block. Just before that, his car just loses traction, and that is a product of just being too much, or rather being too aggressive with the clutch. We talked about that during the pit service. They are going to adjust some flows, maybe put some more lockup or counterweight on that clutch, and it's that decision, it's that weight that actually accelerates the car. When it works, the car moves. When it doesn't, it ends up in smoke.
Jordan Vandergriff is with Jimmy Prock.
Jimmy Prock, back-to-back wins, a clean sweep of Seattle. Are you guys the title favorite this year?
No, I don't know. I don't worry about that right now. You know, everything's going to change here in a few races, and, you know, we just have to keep doing what we're doing. And, you know, the last 6 races are going to decide it, not as much as what goes on right now.
Good. I don't think the guy worries about much of anything. He's not worried about that. He's not worried about much. You can see the folks from Cornwell Tools on the property this weekend. You always want to have the delivery of a victory in front of the main sponsor of your race car. There's another medal. There's another cap. And here comes another conversation with Bruno Massel.
Yeah, proud of you, man. Thank you. For a rookie funny car driver, he is getting all too accustomed to this whole procedure down here as he claims his 4th funny car title. You know, Austin Prock, you and I talked back in the pits, and you said, I've been 60, 70 on the tree, and you said, I just need to do my job. You did just that. You won 69. You trusted the car, and you trusted your dad and your brother to give you that Wally here today. How good is it to know that you've got those 2 men in your corner each and every time you stage up?
It's amazing, man. There's nothing better than racing for family and racing for John Force. We didn't just win today. We doubled up with John Force again here in Seattle. He told me before I got in here, he said, hold the fort down for me, and we did just that. So just an amazing day. Another great day for this Cornwell Tools Chevrolet Camaro SS. I mean, this year's just been unreal, man. I can't even like put into words all the success that we've had. It's just been a blur, and I've just been hanging on, and I wasn't leaving that great all weekend, but I sure was consistent. I was 67, 67, 69, 69. So all stayed shallow, and man, whoa!
John, if you are watching, and we certainly hope you are, the operation's in pretty good hands right now. Austin Prock will celebrate with the family and the team tonight. It'll be short-lived because they will be on the road to Sonoma.